She's mine until I say otherwise.
Huh. My team ends your stunt today.
She slammed the forged emergency removal notice against my chest before I could take a full breath. The sun hit the edges of the paper like a spotlight on the chaos she'd created. Meredith Crowley stood inches from me, chin lifted, voice sharp enough to carve into bone. "Your daughter violated community safety protocol," she snapped, already signaling to the idling car behind her. The vehicle wasn't police-issued. I knew that instantly. Wrong trim, wrong light bar, wrong grille shape for any department in this county. And she couldn't know, that I'd spent 10 years inspecting real federal fleet models. I recognized a counterfeit before she finished speaking. "You should have checked who you were lying to," I told her quietly, letting just a fragment of truth drop, just enough for her to feel the ground shift. Her smile flickered, only for a heartbeat, but I saw it. The board chair didn't like losing footing. If you've ever felt the spark of reclaiming power after someone tried to steamroll you, stay close and hit subscribe now. My name's Mason Cade, former federal vehicle inspector, tactical mechanic, husband to a SWAT captain. But none of that mattered as much as the old oak mailbox post behind me, the last thing my sister built before she passed. Meredith Crowley had spent weeks targeting it, calling it non-compliant, hazardous, a visual violation. Every notice she printed was really an attack on my family's history. The enforcer in crimson behind her clutched her clipboard with the zeal of someone who'd never challenged authority in her life. The clipboard queen adjusted her glasses like she wanted to disappear. The tyrant in heels didn't bother hiding her smirk. And the officer of rules held the forged citation with a posture meant to intimidate, even though the paper shook in her hand. I asked quietly, because moments like this, moments when someone abuses power, aren't just stories, they're universal wounds. My daughter, Harper, stood on the porch, hand on the railing, sensing danger the way children do. Fear clung to her like static. "Step aside," the board chair ordered. "We're placing her under a temporary safety detainment." "You're not law enforcement," I said, "and that's not a real squad car." Her jaw twitched. "Our community bylaws allow—" "No bylaw allows impersonating an officer." Her face paled, just slightly, just enough. The tyrant in heels cut in. "He's obstructing an HOA action." I didn't move, couldn't. My chest tightened with a memory I hated. Watching paramedics try to save my sister after a drunk driver hit her. I wasn't there in time. I'd promised myself I would never be too late again, especially not for Harper. Behind me, the mailbox post cast a long shadow across the driveway, like my sister was standing guard. When the fake cruiser's rear door opened and Harper flinched, my heartbeat slammed into a new gear. "You touch her," I said, "and everything changes." Meredith leaned close enough that I felt her breath. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." But the reversal had already begun, because she also had no idea who I was married to, Elias Ward, SWAT commander, and his GPS alert had already triggered the second that fake cruiser activated its lights. Sirens, real ones, were coming. "Where are you watching from?" The fake cruiser's lights kept flickering, weak, uneven, the kind sold online to people who wanted the illusion of authority. Harper pressed closer to the porch railing, her small fingers curled so tight her knuckles turned white. I could feel her fear like heat rising off the pavement, and Meredith Crowley, still drunk on her illusion of power, took another step toward her, as if nothing about this scene was insane. "Harper needs to come with us," she announced, raising her voice so the neighbors could hear. She wanted an audience. She always did. The board chair thrived on the performance of power. The enforcer in crimson hovered behind her, clutching a laminated bylaws sheet like it was a badge. The clipboard queen adjusted her binder, tapping it nervously against her hip. The tyrant in heels glared at my daughter, with an arrogance that made my stomach twist. The officer of rules handed Meredith another forged notice, her eyes darting between us, unsure whether she was part of justice or a crime. "You're escalating something you don't understand," I said, stepping between Harper and the fake officers. My voice stayed calm, but every muscle in my body was locked. "Walk away now, and maybe someone still gives you the benefit of the doubt." Meredith scoffed. "Don't threaten me, Mason. I've handled men like you for years." Men like me, people who didn't bow, people she couldn't intimidate. She never realized that was exactly why she feared me. Your daughter is coming with us for a safety evaluation, the board chair declared. Failure to comply results in an emergency HOA citation and possible custody intervention. Harper gasped. Dad? It's all right, I murmured, keeping my eyes locked on the tyrant in heels as she stepped closer to Harper's side of the yard. No one is taking you! Meredith waved her hand sharply, signaling the officer of rules. Open the rear door again. We're done with this conversation. The counterfeit cruiser's latch clicked. My pulse hammered so loud I could hear it in my jaw. These women weren't sane. They weren't stable. They were convinced their HOA titles made them above law enforcement. I angled myself toward Harper. Stay behind me. Don't move. Not for anyone. The clipboard queen finally spoke, her voice thin. Meredith, maybe we should wait. Silence, Meredith snapped, her eyes blazing. He doesn't run this neighborhood, I do. The officer of rules swallowed hard, but obeyed, pulling the rear door wider. My daughter's terrified reflection flashed in the tinted window. And then I heard it. A distant wail at first, faint, then rising, fast, real sirens. I turned my head slightly, just enough to confirm what I already knew. A black SWAT-issued SUV was barreling toward Sandalwood Ridge's entrance at a speed that didn't care about HOA speed limits. Meredith didn't realize what it meant. Not yet. But the clipboard queen noticed first. Meredith, that's not our patrol car. The enforcer in crimson squinted. That looks like... A flash of tactical blue and white reflected off the houses. The tyrant in heels froze. The board chair stiffened, confusion replacing her smug certainty. And then Harper whispered, relief breaking through her fear. It's Papa. Yes. Elias Ward, my husband, SWAT commander, and he was coming in hot. The SUV swung into the cul-de-sac, tires biting into the pavement. The second he stepped out, fully geared, eyes locked on me and then on Harper, the entire HOA lineup fell silent, as if someone had ripped the sound out of the world. Meredith stumbled back a step. What is he doing here? I finally let myself breathe. He got the alert, I said. You triggered the GPS the moment you opened that fake police door. The enforcer in crimson whispered, horrified. GPS alert? Elias approached us with the quiet fury of a man who'd seen real danger and recognized it instantly. Step away from my daughter, he commanded. And for the first time, Meredith Crowley obeyed. Elias's presence shifted the entire street. The moment he stepped between Harper and the counterfeit cruiser, the fragile bravado holding Meredith Crowley together cracked. The board chair tried to straighten her shoulders, but her breath hitched, her confidence flickering like the faulty lights on her fake patrol car. She wasn't facing a homeowner now. She was facing a SWAT commander whose expression could silence a riot. Explain, Elias said, voice low, steady, and lethal. The enforcer in crimson wrung her hands, eyes darting toward the clipboard queen as if searching for a script to follow. The tyrant in heels forced a shaky smile that died the second Elias looked at her. The officer of rules stood stiff, her clipboard trembling visibly. But it was Trina Hale, the treasurer, who drew my attention. She stood at the end of the driveway, arms wrapped around herself, shoulders hunched inward. Her gaze kept bouncing between Meredith and Harper, guilt flooding her eyes. She didn't move closer, didn't speak, but her body telegraphed everything: fear, regret, internal war. Don't say a word, Meredith hissed at her without turning. The board chair's voice cracked sharply, revealing the panic underneath. None of you say anything. Trina flinched like she'd been slapped. Elias stepped closer to the fake cruiser, scanning the decals, the mismatched grille, the cheap LED light bar. This vehicle is counterfeit, and it's being used to make contact with a minor. He turned toward the tyrant in heels. Who authorized this thing? She looked like she wanted to evaporate. Meredith, she said it was a community safety vehicle. The clipboard queen added, barely audible, we didn't know it had to be official. You didn't know impersonating law enforcement is a felony? Elias asked. All three women shrank back. Meredith found her voice again, but it came out brittle. We were protecting the neighborhood. His daughter was trespassing. Harper whimpered behind me, and Elias's jaw tightened. She was on her own porch. The enforcer in crimson quietly whispered, Meredith, this is bad. The board chair spun toward her. You shut your mouth and hold the line. But her command no longer held the magic it used to. The HOA's power structure was unraveling one tremor at a time. Trina Hale took a small step forward, just one. Barely noticeable, but her hands were shaking, and her chin trembled as if she were holding back words she'd been terrified to say aloud. Elias noticed. "Ma'am," he said gently, lowering his tone to something human, something steady. "Did you know this vehicle wasn't authorized?" Trina's breathing hitched. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Her fingers dug into her sleeves. Her eyes flicked toward Meredith with terror. The clipboard queen whispered, "Don't, Trina." Trina swallowed hard. Meredith lunged toward her. "No, not one word." Elias stepped between them instantly. "Back up." The street went silent. Trina stared at Meredith, tears gathering in her eyes. She wasn't ready to speak, not yet. But her posture told the truth. She wanted out. She wanted safety. She wanted the nightmare she helped build, under pressure, under fear, to stop. But fear is a chain, and it held her in place. "I didn't agree to this part," Trina finally whispered, voice trembling so softly only those closest heard. "I thought it was just for show." Meredith snapped, "You signed off on everything." Another flinch, another step backward. Trina looked at Harper's pale face, then at the fake cruiser, then at Elias's uniform. Her lips parted, but the words stayed trapped in her throat. Internal struggle, visible, raw, breaking her from the inside. Elias turned to me. "Secure Harper. I'm calling this in." I collected Harper in my arms, feeling her tiny fists grip my shirt. "I've got you," I whispered. Meredith's voice rose in a shrill, cornered panic. "You can't call anyone. We're the authority here." But Trina Hale's expression said everything. She finally realized her board wasn't authority. It was a cage, and the lock had just snapped. Elias had barely raised his radio when Meredith Crowley snapped. The board chair lunged forward, grabbing at his forearm as if she could physically stop the law from existing. "You're not calling anyone," she barked, panic shredding every ounce of her polished confidence. Her voice cracked, ricocheting across the cul-de-sac like a warning shot. Elias didn't move, didn't flinch. He simply lifted his eyes, slow, controlled, lethal. "Remove your hand," he said, each word weighted like steel. She froze, fingers hovering inches from his sleeve, suddenly aware of the line she'd crossed. The enforcer in crimson gasped softly, stepping back as if the ground beneath them had become dangerous. The clipboard queen fumbled her binder, nearly dropping it. The tyrant in heels pressed both hands to her temples, whispering, "Oh God, this is spiraling." The officer of rules clutched her laminated papers like they might shield her from felony charges, but Meredith wasn't done. "You don't understand the authority we hold," she insisted, voice trembling with stubborn delusion. "This neighborhood entrusted me with safety. You're interfering with an official HOA action?" Elias raised an eyebrow. "Your HOA action involves a counterfeit police vehicle and attempted detainment of a minor." Her jaw clenched. "It's not counterfeit. It's community issued." I stepped forward. "It's illegal. And you knew it?" Her eyes flicked toward me, a surge of hatred bright enough to scorch. "You think you're so clever, Mason, always undermining us, always pushing boundaries." Boundaries. The word hit harder than she intended, because she had crossed every one. Harper clung to my shirt, breath still shaking. I angled myself between her and the fake cruiser. "You targeted my child," I said quietly. "You escalated this from petty harassment to something criminal." The enforcer in crimson spoke up, voice hollow. "Meredith, maybe we should stop. He's SWAT, and this—" "Enough!" Meredith roared, spinning around with a fury that startled even her own board members. Her heels scraped the asphalt as she marched toward the cruiser. "This community voted me in. I make the rules." "No," Elias corrected calmly. "The law makes the rules." The clipboard queen whispered to the officer of rules, "She's going to take all of us down with her," her voice quivering with realization. And still, Meredith Crowley doubled down. She yanked the fake cruiser's door handle hard, the metal grinding loudly. "Your husband won't intimidate me. Neither will you. I can detain anyone I deem unsafe." "You're kidnapping," Elias said, voice flat. She froze. The tyrant in heels covered her mouth. The enforcer in crimson whispered, "No, no, she didn't mean..." But the damage had already sunk in. Trina Hale stood several feet away, face pale, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles. Blanched, her internal struggle, still silent, deepened visibly. She watched everything with wide, haunted eyes. Every scream from Meredith pushed her closer toward a truth she was terrified to reveal. Elias finally lifted his radio again. Meredith lunged. The officer of rules shrieked. The clipboard queen dropped her binder, papers scattering like feathers across the pavement. The enforcer in crimson cried, "Meredith, stop!" Elias stepped to the side with training-sharp reflexes, and her hand missed him completely. She stumbled, catching herself against the counterfeit cruiser. But it wasn't the stumble that ended her power. It was the sound that followed, the loud click of Elias's radio activating. "This is Captain Ward," he said, "requesting immediate units at Sandalwood Ridge, possible impersonation of law enforcement, counterfeit emergency equipment, and attempted detainment of a minor." The street froze. Meredith's face drained of color. "You're overreacting," she insisted, voice paper thin. "It's all a misunderstanding." "No," I said, holding Harper close. "It's finally the truth catching up." Trina's breath hitched, her eyes filled with something sharp, fear mixed with the first spark of courage. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Meredith Crowley looked scared. The moment Elias finished the radio call, the entire street shifted, like the air itself recognized a point of no return. Meredith Crowley stood frozen beside the counterfeit cruiser, her breaths thin and sharp, the board chair unraveling as reality closed in around her. She kept glancing down the street as if hoping the world would reverse itself before the first squad car appeared. It wouldn't. Not this time. The enforcer in crimson paced in small, frantic circles. She didn't mean to detain anyone. It wasn't like that. Her voice collapsed under its own weakness. The clipboard queen bent down, scrambling to gather the scattered HOA papers, hands shaking so violently she tore one by accident. The officer of rules looked like she might faint, whispering, "This wasn't supposed to go this far." But Meredith had no intentions of owning the truth. She snapped upright, pointing at Elias with trembling fury. "You're weaponizing your badge. This is an abuse of authority." Elias barely reacted. "Ma'am, you committed crimes. I'm responding accordingly." I stepped closer to Harper, keeping her behind me, her small fingers dug into the back of my arm. "Dad, is she going to jail?" she whispered. I didn't answer, not yet. Because before anything made sense again, I needed to understand how deep this went. And that's when Meredith cracked. "You pushed me to this!" she screamed at me, the tyrant in heels stumbling across the pavement. "Your family has been a problem since day one, Mason. You ignore notices, you disrespect community standards, you undermine everything we built." "You built a fake cop car," I said quietly. Her eyelid twitched. For the first time, her voice wavered. "It was necessary." Necessary. That word chilled me. The enforcer in crimson stopped pacing long enough to swallow hard. "Meredith, you told us this was an approved security measure. You said the county signed off." "They did," she shot back. "No, they didn't," Elias said. "And you know it." The clipboard queen froze mid-reach, wide eyes snapping to Meredith. Betrayal cracked through her expression like lightning. But the board chair wasn't done spinning her story into something survivable. "You don't understand," she insisted. "Parents here complain all the time. They begged for more authority. They demanded tighter control. I was trying to keep order." "By kidnapping my daughter?" I asked. Her gaze flickered. "I wasn't kidnapping her. I was escorting her to her parents. I'm her father." Her lips parted, closed, opened again. She had nothing. That was when Trina Hale finally moved. The conflicted witness stepped forward, arms locked around herself, fear trembling through her every breath. Her eyes darted from me to Elias, then reluctantly to Meredith. "I should have said something," she whispered. "I tried to. But she told me..." "Trina!" Meredith snapped, voice sharp as glass. "Not a word." Trina flinched, but she didn't step back, and that tiny act of resistance was new. Before anyone could push further, Harper tugged on my sleeve. Dad, look. Down the street, the faint glow of red and blue lights flickered. Backup was coming. Fast. Meredith saw it too. Panic tore across her face, the officer of rules collapsing into a sob behind her. The enforcer in crimson whispered, "This is real. This is really happening." The clipboard queen whispered something under her breath, something like a prayer. But Meredith, she broke. She rushed toward me, jabbing a shaking finger into my chest. "You think you've won? You think they'll believe you over an HOA president? You're nothing without your husband's badge." Elias stepped between us so quickly she stumbled backward. "I'm more than my badge," he said, voice steady. "And you're more than a bully now. You're under investigation." The first patrol car rolled onto the street. Meredith Crowley whispered, No, this can't be happening." But it was. The first patrol car had barely stopped rolling when Meredith Crowley tried to compose herself. Chin lifted, shoulders squared, pretending she still held the power she'd already lost. But the illusion cracked instantly as the flashlight beams swept over the fake cruiser behind her. The enforcer in crimson stepped away from it, as if distance alone might spare her. Harper tightened her grip around my waist. Elias rested a hand on her shoulder, grounding her, his voice low and steady. "Stay close. Both of you." Two uniformed officers approached. One of them paused mid-stride, staring at the counterfeit police decals. "What is this?" Before Elias could answer, the board chair jumped in, desperate and breathless. "It's part of our neighborhood security expansion, fully authorized, just misunderstood." The clipboard queen looked like she might be sick. She whispered, "Meredith, please stop talking." But the tyrant in heels wasn't done digging. "This is being blown out of proportion. The child wasn't in danger. I was simply escorting her." Elias cut her off. "Ma'am, you had no authority to detain a minor or impersonate law enforcement." She stiffened. "I didn't impersonate anyone." The officer pointed directly at the fake light bar on top of the car. "This is impersonation." Silence slammed down so hard the entire street vibrated with tension. The officer of rules clasped her hands together, trembling uncontrollably. She told us the county approved it. She even showed us an email, said it came from the sheriff's office." Elias turned slowly. "What email?" The clipboard queen swallowed. "She printed something. I never saw the sender." Meredith shot a venomous glare at her. "You're mistaken. That email was legitimate." I watched the enforcer in crimson crumble, her composure bleeding into the pavement. She wasn't loyal anymore. She was terrified. That was when I realized the HOA wasn't unified behind Meredith at all, and that mattered a lot. The officers began photographing the cruiser, one crouched by the wheels muttering, "These plates aren't registered anywhere. Who paid for this thing?" Meredith snapped, "The association, through discretionary funds. It's all legal." The tyrant in heels looked around wildly, searching for someone, anyone, to validate her. But the street remained dead quiet, except for the soft hum of patrol engines. Elias leaned toward me. "This is bigger than we thought." No kidding? But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Another cruiser pulled in, this one led by a supervisor, and when he stepped out, I recognized him. Officer Talbot, a stoic, seasoned man Elias respected. He scanned the scene in seconds before locking eyes with Meredith Crowley. "Ma'am, is that your signature on the side of this vehicle registration application?" Her chest heaved. "Of course! I sign all HOA documents." "You signed for a police vehicle," he said, "and submitted it to the county under an HOA header. Do you understand what that is?" Her lips trembled. "Community safety? It's a felony!" The clipboard queen gasped. The officer of rules nearly collapsed. Trina Hale covered her mouth with both hands, horror swallowing every inch of her expression. Meredith stumbled back a step. The enforcer in crimson reached toward her as if to help, then stopped, unsure if touching her would make things worse. "That's not possible," Meredith whispered. "I followed protocol. You forged authorization," Talbot said. "This will be investigated by state officials." For the first time all night, Meredith Crowley had no words. Harper pressed her face into my chest. I wrapped my arms around her, grounding both of us. The lights, the voices, the rising tension. It all blurred together into something cold and heavy. Elias exhaled slowly. She's spiraling, Mason, and it won't stop here. He was right, because the discovery wasn't just shocking, it was the turning point. Meredith had built her HOA empire on lies, and now, every one of them was unraveling the moment the last patrol unit rolled away, leaving only the soft echo of engines retreating down Sandalwood Ridge. I sensed the shift. The street wasn't just quiet, it was expectant. Neighbors lingered behind curtains, porch lights glowed like watchful eyes, and right in the center of it all stood the clipboard queen, shaking so hard her keys clattered in her hand. She wasn't looking at Meredith Crowley anymore, she was looking at me. "Mason, can we talk? Alone." Her voice barely carried. The enforcer in crimson, stiff and ghost pale, snapped, "Patricia, don't you dare!" But Patricia flinched at her name, almost recoiling from the board chair's voice. Elias stepped closer, his posture protective but calm. "You can speak freely," he told her. "No one's stopping you." That was all she needed. The clipboard queen exhaled a trembling breath. "I can't carry this anymore." She glanced toward the tyrant in heels, who was pacing near the fake cruiser, muttering to herself, replaying conversations as if rewriting history might save her. She's been lying for months, about everything. My pulse steadied into something sharp. Anticipation, not surprise. "Tell me." Patricia rubbed both palms down her thighs, grounding herself. "You weren't the only family she targeted. She had a list, a literal list. Anyone who questioned her policies, anyone who didn't vote how she wanted." She swallowed hard. She called it her order of correction. The officer of rules gasped, but Meredith Crowley didn't turn. Maybe she didn't hear. Maybe she was pretending not to. Patricia continued. "Those fake police calls, they weren't random harassment. She staged them, scripted them. We were told to report suspicious activity on specific dates to create a paper trail." Elias stiffened. "She used residents as her personal informants." "She used all of us," Patricia whispered. "But tonight, when she pulled your daughter into that fake vehicle, that wasn't part of any plan we ever agreed to. That was her losing control." The enforcer in crimson finally whirled toward us, eyes blazing. "Don't listen to her. She's twisting everything." Patricia's voice cracked with something raw. "Meredith forged documents, Deborah. She forged sheriff approvals. She forged budget authorizations. She forged signatures from board members who had already resigned." Her eyes landed on me. "And she forged a threat assessment report saying your home was a danger to the community. That's why the calls kept coming." The tyrant in heels froze mid-step. Even from yards away, I heard her breath hitch. Elias muttered under his breath, "My God!" Patricia wrung her hands. "Mason, she used your daughter's anxiety episode from months ago to justify protective monitoring. She said you were unstable. She said you needed surveillance." A chill crawled up my spine, but not from shock, from confirmation. Everything I'd suspected, everything I'd felt in my bones, it all aligned. "And you're telling me this now because?" I asked quietly. Patricia's eyes filled, but she didn't blink. "Because I saw Harper tonight, scared, confused, crying." Her voice broke. "And because I never signed up to be part of a kidnapping. I thought we were enforcing neighborhood harmony. I didn't know we were aiding her obsession." Behind her, Meredith Crowley finally snapped. "Stop talking, Patricia." The board chair stomped toward us, trembling with fury. "You're violating confidentiality. You're violating board oath. You violated the law," Patricia whispered. Those 4 words cracked the night open. The enforcer in crimson staggered back as if slapped. The tyrant in heels blinked rapidly, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The officer of rules covered her mouth, shaking her head like she'd woken into a nightmare. Patricia stepped closer to me. "I have proof, timelines, messages, voice recordings, everything." My breath caught. This was the moment the conflicted witness turned, the moment the foundation under Meredith Crowley finally split. Elias exhaled slowly. "Mason, this is how we end her." I nodded, because now, the truth wasn't just on our side, it was weaponized. Patricia's confession was still echoing in my ears when we stepped inside my living room, the air thick with something electric, Fear, momentum, truth finally uncaged. Elias closed the blinds with one swift pull while I powered on my laptop. Harper sat curled on the couch, wrapped in her blanket, watching us with wide, exhausted eyes. I kept her close. Even now, the tremor in her breathing reminded me why none of this could wait. Patricia hovered near the doorway, like she wasn't sure she had the right to come in. The clipboard queen's hand shook, but her voice held steady. Everything I told you, I can prove, but once it's out, I can't take it back. She'll come after me next. She already did, Elias said quietly. Kidnapping crosses a line even her ego can't hide. Patricia nodded, her gaze darting toward the window, as if expecting Meredith Crowley to reappear at any second, storming up the driveway like the tyrant in heels she'd always been. But the night outside stayed still. No red blazer, no barking orders, no fabricated authority. Just silence. I opened a blank folder on my desktop. Let's start with what you have. She took a breath, pulled out her phone, and tapped into her messages. These are recordings of board meetings she held off the books, ones where she instructed us to target certain residents. The officer of rules would have fainted hearing that. The enforcer in crimson would have spun it into another lie. But Patricia? She looked like someone finally choosing oxygen after months underwater. Elias reviewed each audio clip with a trained ear. She told you to file stage complaints? Not told, threatened, Patricia said. If we didn't, she said she'd restructure the board. That was her code for replacing whoever challenged her. I felt heat crawl up my spine. She built an entire harassment apparatus. She did, Patricia whispered, and she used your family as the centerpiece. Elias's jaw tightened. We need to organize this into something clean, irrefutable. The DA can't ignore a pattern this strong. I added new folders: audio, screenshots, timeline, budget abuse. I worked fast. Years of forensic tech consulting taught me how to layer evidence, cross-reference timestamps, and build a chain of continuity prosecutors couldn't poke holes through. Every file we added strengthened the case. Every file stripped another layer off the board chair's fabricated empire. Patricia hesitated as she uploaded the next batch. There's one more thing, her voice barely carried. The budget sheet she forged, the one she used to pay for that fake police cruiser. I froze. Elias did too. You have it? I asked. She nodded. She made me type it. She made me enter the wrong codes. And she told me if anyone asked, I should say county approval was pending. But that approval never existed. The tyrant in heels would have torched the world before admitting she'd forged a government-linked document. But Patricia? She was holding the smoking gun. That mattered more than she knew. It's over for her, Elias murmured. Not yet, I said. We still need the final link. Patricia took a shaky step closer. I have that too. A voice memo. She scrolled, palms sweating. From a week ago. She told me the fake police car would teach Mason a lesson he'll never forget, and that your daughter was unfortunately part of the necessary leverage. My throat tightened. Harper shifted, leaning into me. I wrapped my arm around her as Elias quietly cursed under his breath. Send it, I whispered. Patricia did. The recording hit my inbox like a detonator. I sat back, breathing through the surge of emotion. Tomorrow, we take this to the sheriff's office, directly. And the county board, Elias added, and the state AG. Patricia nodded, wiping her eyes. Just tell me you'll protect me from her. I met her gaze. I will, because she's done hurting families. Outside, a car crept slowly past the house before disappearing into the dark. My instincts sharpened, because I knew exactly who would be back before morning. Meredith Crowley wasn't finished, not yet. The house was quiet, but none of us slept. Not really. Patricia stayed in the guest room with the door cracked open, jumping at every distant engine or shifting tree branch. Harper curled against me until exhaustion finally pulled her under. And Elias sat near the front window, the subtle glow of the streetlight outlining his silhouette like a man waiting for a threat he expected to return. By dawn, my plan was ready. Not just a plan, a full chain of evidence, each item linked and time-stamped, everything the board chair never imagined would be weaponized against her. The screenshots, the voice memos, the forged budget sheet, The off-the-record meeting orders, the harassment timeline, all of it. But I wasn't naive enough to think Meredith Crowley would sit still. At exactly 6:12 a.m., a car door slammed outside. Elias looked over his shoulder. I checked the security feed. There she was, the tyrant in heels, red blazer pressed, hair immaculate, fury boiling through every step she took as she marched straight toward my porch. Not the worn-down version from last night, the polished, dangerous one who'd ruled Sandalwood Ridge with a velvet hammer. I opened the door before she could knock. She froze, eyes narrowing as if she couldn't quite believe I wasn't cowering behind a deadbolt. "Where is Patricia?" "Safe," I said. The enforcer in crimson took a single step closer, her voice crisp and venom-coated. "You think bringing her into your home changes anything? She's a terrified woman who will say anything to save herself." "Funny," I replied. "She said the same thing about you." For a moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Doubt? Panic? Hard to tell. But the clipboard queen had shattered her control, and she knew it. "You're making a mistake," she said. "You don't know what you're playing with." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I replied, "and I know exactly where this is going." The officer of rules appeared behind her, breathless, wringing her hands. "Meredith, please. We shouldn't be here. Go home," the tyrant in heels snapped without even glancing at her. I ignored the exchange entirely. "We're heading to the sheriff's office in an hour. Everything goes to them, and the county and the state." She blinked slowly. "Everything?" "All of it." Her jaw clenched, her nostrils flared, but she still didn't fully grasp the scope. Not yet. I stepped aside so she could see inside, just enough for her gaze to fall on Elias standing behind me. Her voice cracked. "You involved him?" "You involved my daughter." That landed. The enforcer in crimson stiffened, spine straightening as if bracing for impact. "I did what was necessary to maintain order. You impersonated law enforcement," I said. "You abducted a child. You forged county documents. You created a harassment system targeting families." "I protected this neighborhood," she hissed, "from people like you." I leaned in just slightly. "Look me in the eye and say those words to Harper." Her mask faltered. A tremor hit her chin. The board chair stepped back, just barely. Elias moved to the doorway. "Mason, time to go. The sheriff's expecting us." Those words broke something in her. She spun toward her car, fury splintering into something desperate. "This community will regret this. You're destroying everything I built." "Everything you built," I said, "was illegal." She froze. For half a heartbeat, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Then the tyrant in heels smoothed the lapels of her red blazer, forced her posture straight, and climbed into her car. But the moment she slammed the door, her composure cracked, panic flaring across her face as she sped off. Elias exhaled. "She's unraveling fast." I nodded, locking the door behind us. "Good," I said, "because it's time to end this." And with Patricia's evidence in hand, we finally had everything we needed to bury her regime for good. The sheriff's building sat quiet under the pale morning light, its brick walls carrying the kind of authority Meredith Crowley had only ever pretended to own. Elias parked beside me, his jaw set with the calm determination he saved for high-risk operations. Patricia sat in the back seat, hands clasped, eyes darting to every passing car, like she feared the enforcer in crimson would leap out at any second. "She won't come here," Elias assured. "Bullies don't walk into places where the truth is documented." But I wasn't so sure. The tyrant in heels had already proven she'd crossed lines most people didn't even know existed. Inside, a deputy escorted us to a conference room, a long table, 2 cameras, a digital clock ticking like a countdown. I opened my laptop, setting the evidence folder, our arsenal, front and center. Sheriff Talbot entered with a slow, deliberate pace. He shut the door behind him before sitting across from us. "You've got something you want me to hear," I nodded. "This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a coordinated pattern of harassment built entirely by the board chair. My daughter being taken last night wasn't an accident. It was the escalation." Patricia took a shaky breath. "I have names, messages, audio recordings. She forced us to report fake incidents. She used HOA funds on unauthorized projects, including that vehicle." Talbot's brows lifted. "The fake cruiser parked on your street? already in custody. Elias leaned forward. Wait, custody? Impounded at 5 a.m., the sheriff said. County forensic team's on it, but if what you're saying lines up with what they're seeing, this goes beyond HOA misconduct. I opened the folder. It does. One by one, I played the recordings. Meredith's clipped commands, her falsified timelines, her threats of correction. Screenshots followed, her digital orders, her forged approval statements. Patricia added context after each piece of evidence, hands trembling, but voice steadying with each admission. Talbot didn't interrupt. He took notes, occasionally pausing the audio to replay key moments. When we reached the forged budget sheet, he froze completely. She altered county line items, he muttered. That's fraud, falsification of public records, misuse of association funds. And if she authorized that vehicle herself, we're looking at impersonation charges too. Patricia swallowed hard. She used HOA dues to buy it, told us it was for neighborhood enforcement, I added. And last night, she used it to take my daughter. Talbot exhaled, a long, heavy breath. I need that last part in writing. Before I could respond, the conference room door swung open. All four of us turned, and there she was. Meredith Crowley marched inside like she still owned the world. Red blazer sharp, expression carved in stone. The clipboard queen beside me went rigid, fear flooding back into her bones. Talbot stood immediately. Ma'am, this is a closed meeting. You're making a mistake, the enforcer in crimson snapped. These people are manipulating you. They've conspired against me for months. Her eyes locked onto me, wild, desperate, feral. You think you can take down an entire HOA? This community relies on me. I keep it functioning. No, I said calmly. You kept it frightened. She slammed a folder onto the table. These are complaints filed against him. Dozens, Patricia whispered. Filed because you ordered us to... Meredith's nostrils flared. You traitor. Elias stepped between her and Patricia. Back up. For the first time, the tyrant in heels hesitated, just slightly. Talbot opened the folder she'd thrown down, page after page. Identical language, identical timestamps, identical phrasing. He lifted his gaze slowly. These were all written by the same person. Meredith blinked. No, that's not... And that person, Talbot continued, was you. Silence detonated through the room. Elias crossed his arms. It's over. The clipboard queen burst into tears. Patricia covered her mouth. Meredith's jaw quivered as the officer of rules inside her crumbled. Talbot reached for his radio. Sheriff Talbot requesting immediate support. We have probable cause for arrest. Meredith staggered back. The board chair was finally cornered, and she knew it. Word of her arrest request spread through Sandalwood Ridge faster than fire across dry brush. By noon, half the neighborhood had gathered outside the HOA community hall, phones out, arms crossed, whispers rolling like a rising tide. People who once cowered under the board's scrutiny now stood shoulder to shoulder, fueled by months of quiet resentment, finally finding an outlet. This was the moment I'd been preparing for. Public, irreversible, recorded. The sheriff's team escorted us into the hall first. Me, Elias, Patricia, while two deputies stayed outside to manage the crowd. The room buzzed with heat, tension, and long-buried frustration. Residents filled every seat, others standing along the walls. A podium sat at the front beneath the association banner, now crooked, maybe symbolic of everything the HOA had become under Meredith Crowley. And then she entered. The enforcer in crimson marched through the doorway, flanked by deputies, still trying to project authority even with her wrists trembling. She scanned the crowd, expecting loyalty. Instead, she found phones recording her every move. The clipboard queen beside me flinched when Meredith's gaze sliced in her direction, sharp enough to draw blood without touching her. Elias leaned closer. Eyes on her. She'll try to spin this. He didn't have to say it twice. The tyrant in heels stepped up to the podium as though this were another one of her choreographed meetings. But this time, there were no gavel strikes, no neatly arranged agenda sheets, no fear-filled silence waiting for her orders. Only judgment. Residents of Sandalwood Ridge, she began, voice brittle. I'm aware of the accusations circulating, and I assure you, they are wildly exaggerated. Show the video, someone shouted. Let the sheriff speak. Enough lies, Meredith. The room erupted. For the first time, she faltered. Sheriff Talbot stepped forward. Quiet, please. His voice rolled with steady authority. We're here to address the findings of an active investigation involving misuse of HOA funds, forgery, staged complaints, impersonation of law enforcement, and the unlawful detainment of a minor. Gasps rippled through the room. Meredith's face blanched. The officer of rules stepped back as though distancing herself from the explosion. This is slander, the board chair snapped. Fabrications created by people who want to destroy this community. I stood. Her eyes widened, fear masquerading as outrage. The only person who destroyed this community, I said, is the woman who believed she was above the law. Murmurs echoed behind me. Phones lifted higher. The enforcer in Crimson's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. I turned to the residents. You deserve to know what she did. To you. To us. To my family. Patricia stepped forward, voice trembling but loud enough to reach every corner of the hall. She forced us to file false reports. She forged approvals. She threatened anyone who questioned her. The crowd gasped again. She even used HOA money. Patricia continued, to buy that fake police cruiser she used to take Mason's daughter. Dozens of heads whipped toward Meredith. No, that's not... The tyrant in heels lost her grip on her voice, breath stuttering. I acted within my authority. You had no authority, Talbot said firmly, and you broke multiple state laws. The room ignited, murmurs becoming outrage becoming a roar. The clipboard queen covered her ears. Neighbors who once feared the officer of rules were now standing, pointing, demanding consequences. Elias rested a hand on my shoulder. You're up. I nodded, stepping forward to the projector screen as Talbot connected the evidence file. The first audio clip played. Meredith's voice filled the room, cold, commanding, unmistakable. Target his household. I want compliance, and I will have it. Gasps, whispers. Someone shouted, She targeted all of us. Another voice cut through the chaos. Arrest her! Talbot raised a hand. We will conclude the review before any action is taken. But the tyrant in heels was already unraveling, her composure cracking like thin glass beneath a hammer. Her breath hitched as she looked around at faces she once controlled. No loyalty remained, no power, no escape. This was the beginning of her downfall, and everyone in the hall knew it. The room fell into a bruised, heavy silence as the last audio file ended. Every syllable Meredith Crowley had uttered, every forged command, every threat, every calculated order to target my family, still clung to the air like smoke after an explosion. She stood at the front, trembling, her red blazer no longer a symbol of authority, but a relic of a regime collapsing in real time. The officer of rules edged away from her step by step, as if standing too close might pull her down with the sinking ship. Sheriff Talbot turned to face the residents. Based on the evidence provided and what has transpired, Ms. Crowley will be taken into custody pending further charges. His tone was calm, final, nothing left open for negotiation or manipulation. The enforcer in crimson jolted. You can't arrest me. I am the elected president of this community. You were, Talbot corrected. Not anymore. A collective exhale filled the hall. Relief, disbelief, closure finally within reach. The clipboard queen collapsed into a chair, sobbing quietly, as if her confession had drained every ounce of strength left in her. Patricia touched my arm with a small, grateful nod, and I returned it. She had helped tear down the empire she once helped build. That mattered. The tyrant in heels scanned the crowd, desperate for even a flicker of loyalty. But the faces staring back weren't fearful anymore. They were resolute, neighbors reclaiming the ground she'd stolen. Elias stepped beside me, posture steady, eyes unblinking. This chapter ends today. And he was right. When two deputies moved forward, Meredith jerked back. You're making a mistake, all of you. I dedicated my life to this community. You terrorized it, someone shouted. You lied to all of us, another woman cried. You took his daughter, an older man yelled, voice cracking. The board chair stumbled as the deputies gently but firmly secured her wrists. She shook her head wildly, eyes glossy with something between rage and disbelief. You'll regret this. Every last one of you." Her voice echoed as they led her through the aisle, past the residents she had silenced for years. No one stepped aside for her. They let her walk through the weight of her own consequences. Outside, dozens more neighbors watched as she was guided into the patrol car. Phones recorded, murmurs rose. Some residents held their children tighter. Others whispered prayers of relief. Elias placed a hand on my shoulder. "Harper's safe. That's all that matters now." I looked at him, my husband, my anchor, the SWAT captain who'd arrived first when chaos erupted. And for a moment, the world felt still. When we returned home later, Harper ran into my arms, holding on with a fierceness that made my throat tighten. "Is the scary lady gone?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered into her hair. "For good." Patricia approached timidly. "I'm leaving the board, and I'm willing to testify." Her voice wavered, but her resolve didn't. "I want to help fix what she broke." "You already have," I said. That night, the neighborhood gathered in the cul-de-sac, not out of fear but unity. People brought lanterns, folding chairs, hot cocoa for the kids. True community restored. And as we stood together beneath the soft glow of porch lights, I realized Sandalwood Ridge wasn't just recovering, it was healing. Later, sitting on my porch with Harper asleep inside and Elias's hand warm in mine, I recorded a message for those who had followed every moment of our fight. And here's where I ask you directly. If you want more stories of homeowners standing up to HOA tyranny, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from. The nightmare was over, but the victory, that was just beginning.